Hi, this is Emily from the Children's Literature Training Academy. I'm here to talk to you about some gorgeous classic recommendations for kids, discount books that I highly recommend. But before I do that, check out, once you're done, another video I just posted with some picture books with absolutely amazing art, including a discussion on selecting picture books and what to look for. And I do sort of an overhead view of those books so you can see the entire inside of the book as I go through it. And I talk about one of them is a Caldecott Award winner and a winner of many other awards with some amazing art. And the two books are complete juxtapositions and values that they teach for kids, but they're really just fun to look at. So definitely check that out. But now let's talk about this I got as a box set. I don't have them in the box, but this was the Little Women box set on Amazon, $18 for the entire box set. And it has a beautiful box. It's an amazing, these are the original full versions of the books. So this first one, of course, we have Little Women. And if you've seen any of the Little Women movies, you know that some of the traditional story. But the reason this looks so small is because this second book called Good Wives, some consider it part 2 of Little Women, where in some of the classic leather-bound expensive versions, you might have an entire book of them put together. But Good Wives is more about kind of the second half of Little Women, when her sisters, like her sister Beth dies and her sister May gets married. Father comes home from the Civil War. They're more grown up, getting married off. So this is kind of, I guess, Good Wives was kind of like part 2 of Little Women. This is how it was traditionally written. The third book is Little Men. Little Men, you might know in the story of Little Women, Jo, the oldest sister, or second oldest sister, who really is represented by Louisa May Alcott to be herself in those books, and her all from the view of her life she experienced. But she inherited her aunt's mansion, Plumfield. And if you've seen Little Women, the movie, my very favorite one with Winona Ryder, you'll understand more about Plumfield. But she inherits, her aunt's school, and she turns it into a school for fine young men. And that's where the book Little Men comes from. And the final book is Jo's Boys. And Jo's Boys is all of these boys and little men. The previous book are grown up now, going on about their lives. Some become sailors and pirates and congressmen and whatever. And but they're having a lot of trouble in love and life now that Jo is kind of out of the picture and old. So this is like the final book, and it's kind of all about their adventures and how they're not doing as well without, Jo, who was their guide and their mentor and whatnot. And this is supposed to be 10 years after she opened the school, and those boys are now launching into the world. So there's no illustrations in these books or anything. Here's what the text looks like. But I mean, for $18, you get a set of all 4 books. You can't go wrong with that, especially if you have Amazon Prime. So when we're talking about literature of the 1800s, let's go into talking about, if I can, oh, here it is, if I can find it. Stack of books. We'll talk again about Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie. So this leather-bound edition I purchased at Barnes & Noble last year, in fact, in some of their classics done budget-wise in kind of faux leather editions. And this book has the first 5 novels. It's a beautiful book, and it kind of has that Easton Press style with the gold. Can't see it in here, but it has like these gold rims to it. It has kind of this paisley patchwork pattern inside. And it's written kind of in like 2 columns each side, kind of like you would read an old 1800s newspaper article where they would publish stories for children. Each book is done like that, and it does have the original cover, for a new book that starts inside. So it has the first 5 novels in here, which I like. Whoa, that was weird. I like this, but I don't prefer to read them this way. I just like the look of the book. I don't prefer to read them this way because I like to hold each story as a paperback book in my hand as I'm reading it and studying it instead of lugging around a big heavy one. And these ones are nice. I don't want to write in them. I tend to mark and write in some of my books. So when we're talking about Laura Ingalls Wilder books, there's different versions. So we have, of course, the originals. This was one that I actually read as a kid in these original blue covers. The first 4 years. This one was really small, and you can find some of these original sets on eBay, sometimes Amazon. They have some reproductions of the original sets when they first became popular, whenever that was, when I was a kid. So they have these blue covers, and they do have These are, I guess, more vintage style. They do have illustrations in them as well. So these would be like the traditional paperback. You can also get them in the style of the full color collector's editions, which I have 2 of here. And so this one actually, the Long Winter, was an award, a Newbery Award. But Little House in the Big Woods, and these ones are glossy. You know, they're paperback, but they're glossy and they're pretty. And the paper is actually even glossy on the inside. Let's see if I can find. Yeah, so it does have, if I can find a good example, not many, but it has a few in each one color illustrations that are kind of, you know, representative of the original black and white illustrations in the other paperback novels. And so this one, Little House in the Big Woods. And so this one, I like these. I like the original paperback ones. Personally, I don't need to see them in color. I like things more in their original form when I'm reading them. So these are the full color collector's editions. One runs for about $8.99 in a bookstore, maybe $5.99 on Amazon. I believe you can buy it in a set, or you could buy them individually. Since we're on that topic, I want to show you another book which is really interesting that I came across by accident when we're talking about Laura Ingalls Wilder. And this book was from 2018, 2019, actually. And this is great. It's called Laura Ingalls Wilder is Ruining My Life. This is considered general fiction. And it's all about a girl who moves to the town of Walnut Grove, and her parents and the community and everybody only talks about Laura Ingalls Wilder and why the town is famous for Laura Ingalls Wilder and the Little House on the Prairie books. And it's told from this girl in modern day times perspective on how, you know, like her parents want her to go on this journey to relive some of what Laura Ingalls Wilder did. So I'll read you the back. Charlotte's mom had just moved the family across the country to live in Walnut Grove, the childhood home of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Mom's idea is that the spirit of Laura Ingalls Wilder will help her write a best-selling book. But Charlotte knows better. Walnut Grove is just another town where mom can avoid her usual responsibility like she always does. This place is worse than everywhere else the family has ever had to live. It's freezing in the winter. It's barren. It's small. It's ugly. It has nothing to do with what people say about Laura Ingalls Wilder. She's so sick of hearing about Laura Ingalls Wilder, not to mention that something is coming between Charlotte and her twin brother, Freddie, but Charlotte can't figure out what. Charlotte's convinced her family will not be able to make it life on the prairie now any more than Laura Ingalls Wilder did. And so I have not read this book, so this is on my reading list, but it sounds fascinating to me. And it was a really interesting concept. It's definitely a more, you know, a little bit more advanced novel. Chapters are short, no pictures or anything like that. And since we're talking about Laura Ingalls Wilder, here's a classic I picked up by Roger Leah McBride. It's called On the Other Side of the Hill. Pretty fat size novel. And this is actually, if you ever watched the Little House on the Prairie, you know, TV series, this would be considered the later years, you know, the last season or two. But meet Rose Wilder, Laura Ingalls Wilder daughter, and the last of the Little House girls. First, a tremendous cyclone shakes Rocky Ridge farmhouse. Then a long drought and a terrible fire invade the little farm in the Ozarks. There are hard times for young Rose Wilder and her parents. Can the little farm in this promising land of the Big Red Apple ever recover from this disaster? On the Other Side of the Hill is the 4th book in the Rose Years, an ongoing series about another spirited girl from America's most beloved pioneer family. So I'm excited to read this. I haven't read this yet. I loved the Little House on the Prairie books when I was a child. I loved them when I read them as an adult. I think they're amazing. I've always loved the TV show. I have not read by any other author, any spin-offs or continuing series of Laura Ingalls Wilder. So I'm really interested in this. And this book, if it has a copyright, this was a vintage copy, you know, 1995, not too old, 25 years, almost 25 years. Okay, and 2 more classics I picked up. One is by Jack London. It's Puffin Classics. It's White Fang, and Call the Wild. Call the Wild is one of my favorite books. Amazing, beautiful book. And I don't know if you know much about White Fang. I actually haven't read it in about 12 years, so I'm going to get into this again when I'm working on my animal unit for my courses. Born in the wilds of the freezing cold Yukon, the wolf cub White Fang soon learns the harsh laws of nature, growing fiercer and more independent in his struggle to survive, yet buried deep inside are the distant memories of affection and love. Can he learn to trust man again? What I love about Call the Wild and White Fang are there's some really harsh lessons to be taught about treating animals kindly, animal abuse, preferably not engaging in animal abuse. It gives you inside look into what it could be like from the perspective of animals, if there was some realism to animals had conscious thoughts and feelings and what they might experience. Coming from how their view of how human and man treats them, what they're used for, versus the good man, the bad man, you know, that harms or loves an animal. So I think these stories are really beautiful. Jack London writes some beautiful classic literature about the lives of wild dogs and dog and man coming together in nature and learning to appreciate the species, you know, as something of value beyond just what it can do for man. And I picked up another Puffin Classics. This is the Tales of Ancient Egypt. And I have another video here on my YouTube channel. If you go down, I think it's a whole pile of these Puffin Classics. I showed, I don't remember the title of the video. The video was 4 years ago. You have to scroll quite a bit down on my channel. But there's probably about 10, 12 of them I showed in the video. And I love this series because they're small, they're square, they're little compact books. And I have quite a lot of them, 5 Children and It. I have Pinocchio. There's quite a few classics that are a little bit more, you know, not as well known, harder to find. In this thrilling collection of the great myths, you'll encounter Amaran, who created all the creatures in the world, Isis searching the waters for her dead husband, Ostris, the Benu bird, and the Book of Thoth. And there are also tales told purely for pleasure and treasure and adventure, and even the first ever story of Cinderella. So, which is a whole other history I'm not going to get into beyond what we know about the Brothers Grimm. And there are no illustrations other than a few little pencil-y drawings here and there. So these are really different individual stories. And I just, oh, you can see on the inside flap some of the other books from the series. So, you know, there's Black Beauty, The Wizard of Oz, The Call of the Wild, ironically, Alice's Adventures, Tales from Shakespeare, What Katie Did, one of my favorites, Just So stories, on and on. They're harder to find now. So I don't know they're making them, releasing them anymore. I've had mine for many years. And I occasionally go on Amazon to try to find if there's any others I don't have, which I did, which I found this one, which was like, it was like from a secondhand seller. They didn't even have it like a live version, but you can look for any of the books in the series. But classic literature for kids is fabulous. I always recommend to have children read the original versions, not the versions that are cut and made simpler to read for kids. If the child is too young to read any classic children's literature, you can read it to them so they can at least become familiar with the stories until they're ready to read it for themselves. The problem with reading the, you know, or delving too much into abridged versions or unabridged versions, or separating them like that, or not, some of the versions you see of the, I guess you could say, you know, there's the great illustrated classics, but they're so cut. I mean, they cut out so much of the original book. You don't see the original beautiful language, the play of words, the style of writing, classic writing versus modern writing. And sometimes aspects of the story are cut out. So children end up having a, you know, a little bit of a, sometimes a lot of a different version of what they think this story is about, if their first experience with the story is a version that wasn't the complete version. So that's my recommendation for classic literature. Thank you everybody for watching, and please subscribe to my channel and check out my Facebook page, Children's Literature Training Academy, to like and follow.